Hey, Solo Scout here. It is a bright and sunny Sunday morning here in the Ozarks. It is about 48 degrees. It's supposed to get up to the upper 50s. And we are taking the scenic route to church this morning. Our low water bridge is completely out of service for maintenance. There's a big section cut out and they're going to put some new culverts in. So we are headed around behind Indian Trail Conservation Area to get back to Highway 19. And this is one of two ways that you can get back to the main highway. This one is the much more scenic route. The other way is also a gravel road, and it does not have any low water crossings like this one does. But we are going through Indian Trail, and I'm getting a little bit more familiar with this road, but there are plenty of twists and turns and elevation changes. It will keep you on your toes. Not a whole lot to report on the little Honda here. It's still plugging away. We've swapped out the rear rack system. It had a Yamamoto branded rear and side rack system, and it was all that was available for side racks the year that this model came out. Of course, this is the first year model, CRF 300L 2021, and I tried some soft luggage right off the bat, and I just couldn't keep it away from the tailpipe. I just, you know, hanging it over the back seat, hanging it over the rear fender, I couldn't get it tied up and still have all the gear in it. So I started looking for a side rack and found the Yamamoto branded item there from Thailand, and that was a chore. It was on eBay, and you know, buy it now, paid immediately, and then it was almost 2 months before I got the rack. And this was back in early 2022. Like January or something. So you're still learning this road. There are mailboxes there on the side of the road to give you some warning, but I will pass them up more often than not. There we go. Anyway, early 2022, got that Yamamoto system, and you know, it was made out of decent thickness aluminum. You know, it wasn't super thick, but it wasn't real flimsy either. It had crisp bends on it, and you know, it looked just fine. It sat all the way back over the rear fender. Everything went over the rear fender, so the rear rack and then as well as the side racks, that's how far back they were. And that worked for me for forever, it seemed. Did a good job, but the way that it mounted to the bike, all the mounting points were on the factory hook bolts. So that's what they're called. They're called hook bolts. The two that hold the back of the seat, and then two that hold the rear fender together, hook bolts. Anyway, so it was just those 4 points. Everything mounted there. There was a crossbar in the back, and it just kept the side rack spread apart. It didn't actually mount to the bike anywhere. Neither did the side racks mount in the front to the bike anywhere. So installation was a breeze, but there was wiggle. And it really wouldn't be that bad if the weight that I put on those racks wasn't as much as I did. I mean, I had 100 pounds of gear on the bike on one of my trips. It had to have been 100 pounds. I've weighed as much as 70 pounds on the scale at one time, and then I put even more on it for another trip, so it had to have been close to 100 pounds. Anyway, that was just too much without more mounting points. The side racks kind of closed in on each other, and the crossbar in the back, it was in a position that with the slightly taller or larger circumference rear tire that I have on, I have the Shinko 700. It's a little taller tire. If you softened up the rear suspension to give you a Barca Lounger ride, you could compress the suspension far enough that the rear tire would actually touch that crossbar on the side racks. And I didn't know it was doing that until I saw that my crossbar was bent, and I thought, you know, it had the bike fallen over and then somebody picked it back up, because it sure looked like the side racks had squished together. But no, I had straightened it back out, went for a ride, and, you know, 3/4 of the way through the ride, I was in town and hit one of those side street transitions that just really deflects the suspension, and I heard a rub like that, and I looked down, and sure enough, my crossbar had bent towards the front of the bike, and then I knew what was going on. Anyway, I am lucky enough to have a motorcycle and have rack and luggage and all that, so I'm trying not to complain and whine so much. You know, I'm very blessed to have what I have. So I thought that I could just massage everything back into place and just drive on with what I got, even though I knew that there are far better options. My riding buddy, Dueling Moto, he has the Tusk system, and I was there when he installed it on his bike, and I mean, it's just night and day difference. But that is giving up the $250 or whatever I paid for this rack system, plus the cost of buying a new rack system, and so on and so forth. So I thought I'd just, you know, make do with what I got and just, you know, keep an eye on it, and I'd be all right. But on this very road, way back there, I actually let the bike fall over, and that was it for the rear rack system. It bent the side rack so much that it actually bent the mounting tabs for the rear rack, and while it's all aluminum and probably could have been massaged back into shape, I knew that that was a good sign that it probably wasn't going to survive the abuse that I dish out on the poor little Honda here. So I went ahead and got the Tusk system, and it is just night and day. Now, I will say I didn't care at all for the rider peg, for passenger peg removal to get the bolt and all that. The mounting location doesn't bother me. I've got some aftermarket pegs in the holes that were provided on the Tusk system, but oh my goodness, that stinking battery box, the little screws didn't want to let go, and it just, yeah, it's a shame that Honda didn't design that area a little differently. But anyway, regardless, I've got the Tusk system on there, and there's no wiggle. You can pick the bike up by my side cases, I've got the Pelicans mounted on there, and you can grab one of those handles and just pick the whole bike up with no wiggle at all. So much better. And of course, with the TUS system, your side bags are lower to the ground, or they're closer to the ground, and they're farther forward, so that center of gravity, your balance, your suspension load, all that stuff is greatly improved. Instead of having all that weight farther back and higher up, you put some of that load toward the front and close to the ground. So yeah, it's much better. But of course, like I said, the TUS system was not available back in 2021 when I bought the bike. So it was not an option then. But for anybody out there looking for a side rack system, highly recommend the TUS. I have an extra set of mounting plates that I put my soft bags on, and I still have the first set of soft bags. I have not upgraded those. They're still hanging together, and they have, well, I'll have to show it in another clip, but they had a way that I could mount that quick connect plate to without using the TUS soft bag adapter plate. So I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. These Pelican cases, they're 1450s, and they by their very name can hold between 14 and 15 liters of storage. My soft bags can hold 25 liters, so that's obviously 10 liters more in the soft bags, and those are what I generally will put on the bike if I'm going camping, or on a, well, it would always be camping if it's a long ride. But anyway, the soft bags are what I put on the bike if I'm doing a camping trip. Just hold more stuff, and I don't have to worry about running out of space, and I can take everything I want to take even if I end up not using it. It seems like no matter how many how-to videos or articles I read, I end up taking everything I can think of, even if I know I haven't used it in the past. That mentality is hard to shake. 2 is 1 and 1 is none, and if you don't have it, you can't use it. So I tend to pack just about everything I can, and usually when I get to where I'm going, I'll find out that there's a nice picnic table, and there's everything that I've got packed in the bag. I don't need the table and chair, but it's in the bag. So that's the reason for having 2 sets of bags. On a day ride, even an all-day ride, the Pelican cases are my choice. Everything that I need on a daily basis is in the hard box in the back there, so I don't have to worry about taking stuff out of it and packing it in another bag. I've always got that stuff. Well, that was the long way around to get here on Highway 19, headed to church this morning. So glad to see the sunshine. The temperature is nowhere near what I like, but I gotta stop complaining somewhere, right? So take the wind for the sunshine, and enjoy the ride on the little Honda 2021 CRF 300L. This is Solo Scout. I'm Oscar Mike.